Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the June meeting of the Mountain View Computer Users Group. On today's agenda, we're going to talk about MVCUG business. Then we're going to segue into a really interesting timely tech talks. We have two major announcements that came out this past month. Then we're going to have tips of the month, and we've got a lot of good tips thanks to our two vice presidents. Yeah, congratulate yourself. And then we're going to have quite a few terms of the month because in today's presentation, we have a whole new vocabulary that has come about in the industry. And so we're going to be going over those, so when I start using terms during the presentation, you'll have a vague idea of what I'm talking about. And today's presentation is really, I think, fantastic. Then we're going to do our main presentation, which is digital imagery. What is real? And I'll tell you right now, that is one of the best titles I think I've ever dreamt up, because what you're going to see today is going to make you question the people even sitting next to you. Are they or are they not real? And then we'll end up with question and answers. This month's sponsors are Mia Bella Products, Carolyn McLean, who also happens to be our treasurer, JB Photo and Video, which just happens to be me. Any of your photographic needs, regardless. Okay. And which brings up, if you know somebody who wants to sponsor a meeting, it's $10 a meeting, $100 a year. You get a slide during the meeting. It's posted on the video on the web. We mention you on Facebook. Ask around, see if anybody you know, friends, neighbors, car dealers, doctors, dentists, whoever. Okay, moving right along. MVCUG business. The officers. I'm one of them. I'm the president, John Buono. Mike, raise your hand, Mike. Mike is one of our vice presidents who deals mainly with Windows. And for those of us old enough to remember MS-DOS, he's also iOS. We have Barry, who's our vice president, and mainly Macintosh and also iOS. By the way, iOS is becoming a generic term because the further we go, iPad OS, iPhone OS, Apple TV OS, Watch OS, Car OS are diverging. You have your base iOS, but each of them, like Apple TV OS, bears little resemblance except iconically, good way of phrasing it, with iOS. But it is iOS, but it's not iOS as we know it. Especially, that's true. Berkeley Unix, 5.3 if I remember correctly. So just understand that if you have an iOS problem, make sure you address it as which one of the myriad of devices that you have the problem with, because the solution will vary depending upon the device. Then we have Carolyn, our treasurer, who's going to give us our treasurer's report. Okay, and let me get my, okay, testing. 1, 2, can you hear me? Is it coming through? Okay, there we go. Okay, now we also have Jim Emmons, who is our webmaster. Jim does, in fact, exist, though I have not heard from him this past week. I need to rattle his cage and see if he's still alive. We all know who everybody is. Does anybody not know who anybody else is here today? Okay, we'll bypass that. Introduce yourselves. Welcome. Some of the club resources. We have our website, mvcug.org. We have our Facebook site. We have our resources site, which nobody has visited in over a month, which I think is a little shame. Membership benefits. Addition to our online resources, we have hardware you can check out, a film slide scanner, and a projector. Which, if you have a group that you want to show a movie to, especially in the warm months, like you have grandkids, you can get the projector through HDMI projected video, and you can have like a 200-inch screen. I did this in our patio the other night. Projected a movie up onto one of our pull-down shades, and I had basically about a 180-inch screen, which is a small theater. So, that is available. Professional consultation from myself and Barry. We can do in-person, telephonic. If the telephonic goes over 30 minutes, we do ask you make a contribution to the club. I had one the other day that went for 4.5 hours. Ended up with a guy screaming bloody murder. Not at me, at the fact that what it took to do what his employer wanted him to do, which was, in my mind, very simple, but in his mind, it was upload a video to Google Drive. Sounds simple. It is and it's not. And it ended up taking him, trying to explain it to him, almost an hour because he didn't label any of his videos other than the default file names. So he had no idea which video was the correct one, and on and on. Okay, FaceTime now allows you to share screen, not share control directly. If you are going to a desktop Mac, you can still go through messages and share screen. However, if it's a laptop Mac, you can't. Yes, I know. I found that out. Yeah, hopefully they'll bring control back. Okay, and yes, you now can share your screen through FaceTime for your desktop or any of your iOS devices, which makes it really cool. Okay, $25 per household. Okay, pay your dues. We don't need that one right now. Okay, what's coming up? Okay, next month is cloud services. And we'll be in this room again for next month. This is A102. I forgot to change the title for August. August is not cloud services. It's, smart homes or something like that. But we're going to be talking about the smart homes, smart cars, virtual reality, upgrading IP version 6, all kinds of interesting topics. Mainly it's going to be on the smart home and the State of the Union on the smart home and smart car. And then September is our annual topics meeting where you get to come in and tell us what you want to talk about for the next month, which is how we end up with this presentation today. So do I. That is my favorite part of the entire meeting. Everything you didn't know you wanted to know about what happened this past month. Ooh, I like that one. Who put that? Is that one of yours, Barry? Okay, great. Windows made a very interesting announcement just this last week that Windows 11 is now ready for use. Even though it's been out for a year, they said it is now ready for broad deployment. And Mike, I think you're 100% correct. I really think that's what happened. Now, if you have a Windows machine, you probably won't be able to run Windows 11 because it's a very narrow, basically in the past, year and a half? It has to be a very new computer, fairly high performance, but you don't get that much more out of Windows 11. And as near as I can tell, the ransomware issue is the only real thing it gives you. And then for those of you who were asleep this past week and missed the fact that Apple had its Worldwide Developers Conference, the reviews were mixed. Critics out there said it was a very lackluster performance. They didn't bother to talk to anybody who watched it, and apparently they didn't, because Apple made some incredible announcements, but not the ones everybody was expecting. Everybody was expecting that the Apple Car and the virtual reality lenses would finally be announced. What they missed, and I'm sure that many of you missed this, is that another company made a very interesting announcement this past, just before Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference. And that company was Disney. And Disney announced within the next 3 months at Disneyland, Star Wars Land, they will be issuing lenses to people that support augmented reality so that you may interact characters within Star Wars Land as if they were actually there. Understanding that Apple and Disney have a very tight relationship, my conjecture, other than the fact that the letter I wrote to Tim Cook basically said exactly what is just happening as a way of making a market, I think that Apple is using Disney to alpha test the glasses. And what little I've been able to find out is that you'll be able to walk through Star Wars Land, which is very much like being on a foreign planet, and you'll be able to interact with live characters. Unless you're wearing the glasses, you will not see or hear them. If you are wearing the glasses, it will be as if they're there, which ties in to this month's presentation on Is It Real? Okay. Among other things we got is a major, and I mean major, probably the biggest upgrade to iOS that we've seen in 5 years, Barry? Yeah, I was thinking of iOS 9. That was the last real big change. Among other things that we know of is the lock screen. Now you'll be able to customize your lock screen and put widgets on your lock screen. So for information that you want, like I always want the weather and the stock report. I can now put those on my lock screen so I don't have to unlock my phone to find out how much money I'm not making. They have finally, after 200 submissions by myself alone, they are adding multiple stops to maps. So you can program an actual trip, gas stops, hotel stops. They're finally adding up to 15 stops. There is also a rumor I got from one of the guys who's up at WWDC that they are finally going to support HOV, which yes, because that's been one of my big complaints going to California, is that without knowledge of HOVs, you don't know when to get off, or if you can get off. The other thing, and I think this is great, even though there's a lot of critics, you now can edit a message in Messages, as long as it's going to another Apple iPhone user, or another Apple user. From what I understand, it does not support the green bubbles, only blue bubbles, but I don't know that for sure yet. Yes. Now, how many of you have accidentally sent a message to the wrong person? I know I have. You'll be able to unsend that message. You'll be able to correct the message, something we've been dreaming about for years. Now, what surprised everybody that nobody was expecting is they announced the M2 MacBooks, a MacBook Air and a MacBook Pro with the new M2 chip, which gives a performance increase of 20% over the M1 chip, which, by the way, equates to about 130% over the Intel Macs. You don't really realize how powerful the new M chips are from Apple until you see a comparison with the Intel chips. And so that was very interesting. No one was expecting that announcement. And it makes us wonder what's going on. I think what happened is that originally the Apple glasses were supposed to be announced. Something happened last minute that caused it not to be. They substituted this so there'd be a major announcement, and we're going to see a special presentation on Apple glasses. Okay, we also have iPad OS, and this first one is something that's going to be on both iPad and Mac OS. We're finally going to get a Windows manager. I have a large screen. I know Charles Hancock has got a large screen. Barry's got a large screen. Having multiple windows open, it can be a nightmare. Well, Apple's first solution was multiple desktops. I don't like that because I can never remember which desktop I'm on. They now have that your windows, and you can see it over on the left-hand side, those icons. Those are open windows that have been assembled over on the side of the screen to unclutter your desktop, and you can open them as you see fit. I am signing up for the beta just so I can play with this. I want it so badly. Also, you have screen scaling, which means now you can hook an iPad up to any monitor and have it scale to that monitor size, which brings the iPad one step closer to being a laptop replacement. Though Apple's still maintaining it's two totally different categories. I think, based upon this release, that I won't have to get my daughter a new laptop for college. That everything she needs to be able to do, she'll be able to do from her iPad. Major updates to Mail and Safari. Mail is finally going to get a schedule, so you can schedule when you want an email to be delivered. You'll have a undo, recall mail, and there was a third one I don't remember. You get an email come in and says we need you to contact us by that. You can set from within Mail a reminder that'll come and say, hey, you need to respond to this email. macOS 13's Ventura. Two big announcements is you now can use your iPhone as a camera directly on your Mac. Belkin is making little stands. Oh, here it is. So I'll be able to put my phone right up here, and it'll be a webcam. The resolution of this far exceeds the resolution, either the built-in one or most external ones. That's a big announcement, and it'll be wireless. Stage Manager, which we just talked about, and I think this is great. You remember for the past 2 months, I've been talking about FIDO2 and getting rid of passwords. macOS 13 Ventura supports FIDO2, which means that if the site supports it, you won't have to ever use a password again. It'll be done either through facial recognition or thumbprint. And Apple is going out and working with Microsoft and Google. See, right now, in order to use FIDO, you have to have a dongle, which is normally looks like a little USB drive that you have to plug in or hold next to the computer. And that generates the key that goes in to prove you're you. Well, Apple's come out that you'll be able to use your iPhone to do the same thing. So as long as you have your iPhone with you, that you've got your passkey, you can go to any device and log in without having to use your password. It's coming to Android. The rumor right now is it's going to be announced next month. Yeah, but see, Android doesn't have good facial recognition right now, and that's what's holding them up. There was so much announced in that 2-hour presentation that I would have to use the entire meeting to discuss it. If you have not seen the 2-hour presentation, it is worth watching. It is really well done, especially in line with today's discussion. Moving right along, does anybody have questions about the users group? We've got some great tips. Now, to show you the first one, contextual menus, this is for Mac users and Windows users, because they have the same thing that most people don't realize, that you can right-click or control-click, and it brings up a menu. Now, this particular menu, you're seeing selections than you would get. But if you right-click on your menu, on your Mac, on any file in the Finder, see, I'm right-clicking, it brings up this contextual menu, and allows me, among other things that you will see, is open with, move to trash, get info, rename. But one of the things that you get that most people don't know about is move to, which is copy and delete. Seeing right here is extended, but you still get the move to and copy to. These others right down here come with the extension I put in. The screen capture to applications I can set up. I have quick actions where I can go into with markup. But go in, and what I'm saying is go in and right-click on an item and see what your menu shows you. There's all kinds of hidden features there that most people don't know about. Windows has the same thing, and most people do not realize everything that's in there. Rename normally looks like that. Okay, where you just go and type. However, if you select a number of files and go to rename, it brings up a rename editor where you can go in, like let's say that I want to get rid of 116 in this file name, and I need to replace it with 117. And I just hit rename, and you can see it just went in and renamed all of them. Now what I'm going to have to do is come back and replace 117, because 116 is very specific. So you can batch rename files right from the Finder. Most people don't realize that. So take a look at your contextual menu and see what's there. You have quick look, which most people don't use. Aliases. Moving right along, Barry has a iOS tip, Calculator Quick Tips.
A very quick tip for the Calculator app on iOS. I'll wait for this out. If you happen to be entering a number, entered the wrong digit, all you have to do to go undo that last digit is to up above where the numbers are on the screen. I'm just going to swipe to the left, and it undoes the last digit typed. It works swiping to the right as well. So it doesn't matter which way you swipe. You can just swipe in that black area above the numbers to get rid of the last entered digits. Swiping, it'll just like undo incrementally each digit you've typed. Another real quick tip on this: if you need to use that number after you've done something like you multiply this by that and you get a result, you need to put that result someplace else. If you tap and hold on the number, you get a pop-up menu. You can copy that number, and then you can go to some other app on your phone that accepts text, and you can paste it in.
Or if you're really tricky, if you're sitting next to your Mac or your iPad, that it goes to a universal clipboard and allows you to, and I do that all the time, especially in Safari. I'll copy a URL and then paste that into Safari on my notebook. And there it is. That's a slick trick. I have a YouTube video from Mike, so sit back.
Hello, my name is Mike McLean, and I'm going to discuss a utility available to you in Windows 10 and 11 called Windows Sandbox. But first, a little background. What is Windows? Windows is an operating system that controls your access to your computer's hardware and resources, memory, storage, and so on. All hardware access must go through the operating system. Malware fools the operating system into allowing access to computer resources, allowing it to download other malware, ads, and so on. This can be mitigated by using a virtual machine on Windows.
So, what is a virtual machine?
So, what is a virtual machine?
A virtual machine is a separate
A virtual machine is a separate instance of a second operating system, which is called a guest, running in Windows, the host, just like a program. It's often used with an operating system like Linux, so it doesn't have to be installed directly with Windows. A virtual machine cannot access computer resources directly. It has to go through the host operating system. This prevents malware from accessing computer resources directly, protecting the host system. And a virtual machine can be saved and turned off and restored later.
So what is Windows Sandbox?
So what is Windows Sandbox? Windows Sandbox is a specialized version of a virtual machine. A sandbox allows you to run and test new software or visit dodgy websites without risking your computer. Any malware encountered in the sandbox cannot escape the sandbox. And once you turn the sandbox off, all files that it was using are destroyed. This makes a sandbox great for evaluating new software and websites. But first you need to check to see if your system is sandbox compatible. Windows Sandbox is only available in Windows versions 10 and 11 in the Professional or Enterprise editions. Also, your computer's processor must be able to perform virtualization. And if you have a computer that's just been purchased in the last few years, it probably can handle it. Also, Windows Sandbox is not installed by default and must be installed manually. This demonstration will illustrate how to check, install, and run Windows Sandbox. To determine what version of Windows you're running, go to Start, Settings, System, and About all the way down at the bottom. And about halfway down the screen, you'll see Windows specifications. The first entry is Edition, Windows 10 Pro. So my system can handle using Windows Sandbox. Now I need to make sure that my CPU can actually handle doing virtualization. To get there, I'm going to bring up Task Manager. So I'm going to do a Control-Alt-Delete. That brings up a list of things I can do. I select Task Manager. And under the Task Manager, I'm going to the Performance tab. The first thing selected is CPU. On the right, about halfway down, I'll see Virtualization Enabled. So my CPU can do virtualization. That's all I need. Now I just need to actually install the Windows Sandbox feature on the system. There's a number of ways to do this. I think the easiest is to go to the Windows search bar and type in Control Panel. And I start typing it, and here it is. Control Panel is being slowly replaced by the Settings app under Windows, but it's still available and still has a lot of good functionality. Under the Control Panel, I'm going to go to Programs and Features, and in the upper left corner, I'll see Turn Windows Features On or Off, and that's what I want. I click on that, and it brings up a dialog box asking for an admin password, since I'm running under a normal user. So I'm going to enter my admin password, which is what you would expect since you don't normally want users adding and subtracting functionality from their system. Under Turn Windows Features On or Off, I'm going to scroll all the way down to Windows Sandbox, and you'll see it here and see it's already checked because I already installed it. If it's not installed, you'll see it's blank. Go ahead and click on it and click OK. And if you're installing it for the first time, it will then come up and say that you need to reboot your system. So go ahead and reboot, and when you come back up, you will have Windows Sandbox functionality. Now Windows Sandbox is ready to use. To get to it, I go to the Start menu, and under the Programs, I scroll all the way down to Windows Sandbox. And I click on it, and it launches Windows Sandbox running under Windows. And as you can see, it looks pretty much like another instance of Windows running under Windows. Now, there's a couple of different ways that I can use this. If there's software up on the web that I want to evaluate, Sandbox does provide web connectivity, and I have a copy of Microsoft Edge right here. So I can bring that up and use that to go to whatever websites or that I want to check out or download software. As an example, here's a website that I know well. I also have another way. If I already have a file on my computer that I want to check out, if it's on my host system, I will go find a file. I'm going to bring up my File Explorer, and I'm going to go to Downloads and select a file here that I want to examine. I'm going to right-click on it and do a copy. I'm just going to use copy and paste functionality. Go back to Sandbox, right-click, and do paste. And there is a copy of the file. The original is still safe where it was, but I can now do anything I want to this file. I don't have to worry about it because it is a copy. So if whatever website or programs that you're examining don't play well with your computer, if it does turn out they have malware, it doesn't matter. When you click the close button on Sandbox, you'll receive a warning that says, once Windows Sandbox is closed, all this content will be discarded and permanently lost, which is exactly what we want. I click OK, and Windows Sandbox is closed, and it just destroyed everything that I was looking at. So if there was malware in there, if I went to a website that was infected with malware, it doesn't matter. It was all just destroyed when I closed the Sandbox. So this is a way to check out programs or websites without putting your computer in danger by using Windows Sandbox, available with Windows 10 and 11 Professional and Enterprise editions. This is Mike McLean.
This month I've got a really special little app to show you. It's called SpeedCut, and it resides up in the menu bar, and it's part of the Set App application. So if you have not seen Set App on the Macintosh, definitely worth looking into. And what this little app does is it allows you to very easily select a person or object in a photo. As you can see right here, we select the person, and instantaneously we have a cutout of that person that is about as good as you can get out of Photoshop. SpeedCut is also available through the Macintosh App Store. But let's take a look and see how it works with some other photographs. I'm going to choose a photograph of a young lady with whispery hair, which is one of the hardest things you can cut out. So let's take a look and see how well it does this. We're going to go and select it, and it's just up in the menu bar. Choose Portrait Cutout, select the portrait, and within seconds, you've got a really good cutout. Now, this one does have some background left in it, so it would need some policing up. Can be taken care of relatively easy in an application like Photoshop. And depending upon your background, you may not even have to do that. But let's take a look at objects. Can it really do objects? So we're going to go and select an object. In this case, I'm going to select a handgun. And I'm selecting this on purpose because this is a very difficult thing to cut out normally. So we're going to go up to the menus, select Object Cutout, click and drag it over the object we want to cut out, and instantaneously we have a cutout of the object. As you can see, it did a pretty good job of cutting it out except for the trigger housing. And this is very typical of any of the programs that you have that do cutouts like this. You have to go in and remove areas like that. So this is SpeedCut. Definitely worth taking a look into if you have the requirement to cut objects or portraits out of a picture. Okay, our final one is from Barry.
Hi, this is Barry Midgordon. I'm the Vice President for the Mountain View Computer Users Group in Sierra Vista, Arizona. And this is the Mac OS tip for June 2022. Changing the pointer size and color. When we talk about the pointer, we're referring to this arrow that is manipulated with a mouse or trackpad. Some people call it a cursor, but the cursor is actually the vertical line, the insertion point in text, where when you type, the letters appear. The mouse pointer is the arrow on the screen. So to change anything about the mouse pointer, we have to make a trip to System Preferences. Let's go down to the dock, we'll open System Preferences, and you'll find the controls for changing the look and behavior of your mouse pointer in accessibility. So click on the accessibility preference pane, and then you'll want to go to display, which is not quite intuitive because if you scroll down here, you will find an item for pointer, which is the pointer control settings. Now these settings actually have to do with how the pointer behaves. We're not doing that right now. We want to change the way it looks. So that's under the display, how the pointer is displayed on the screen. And you'll notice there are 3 tabs here: display pointer, color filters. We want to go to pointer. And these are the controls for how your pointer appears on the screen. Not how it works, but what it looks like. First to point out is there is an item called Shake Mouse Pointer to Locate. And this is handy if you have a large screen or you're older like myself and eyesight's not as good as it once was, and you lose your mouse pointer on the screen somewhere. If you just shake it back and forth with the mouse or on the trackpad itself, it'll enlarge it, and then you can see where it is. You can turn this on and off with this checkbox right here. So if I shake it after turning it off, it stays the same size. Turn that check mark back on and I shake it, There's the pointer. Below this, though, are where you can change how it looks. There's a pointer size bar here where you can drag this marker over to the right and it makes it large. And that's as large as it gets when you shake it. Of course, you can set it anywhere in between. And as if I drag it in real time, you can see the pointer get a little bit smaller to what Apple calls normal, which is pretty small. I tend to leave mine like one notch up. And then below that are where you can change the color of the mouse. It might be helpful to find it on a different kind of color background with a different contrast for these colors. So if you want to change the outline color from white, you click on that white box there and it brings up the colors picker. This is a very standard system color picker and it gives you several different options in terms of picking colors. This crayon one is, or colored pencil is pretty easy. So you can change the outline to red, for instance, if you want. And then if you want to change the fill color, change it from black to something else, you could change it to a green. And then you've got a Christmas themed pointer for the holidays. You could change the outline to orange, for instance, or tangerine, and then you have a St. Patrick's pointer. But more than that, if you happen to be working on something that's, predominantly a dark background, you could choose a outline that's a very light color, but maybe a highlight that looks contrasty to the color in the background, and then change the fill color to something that's it helps you find that pointer. And if you want to reset it back to the Apple black and white, just click the reset button here. So that's your tip for Mac OS, how to change the pointer's size and color. See you next month.
Thank you, Barry. That was really interesting. And now, are there any questions anyone has about Windows, Macintosh, or iOS? Since there are no questions, it's time for a break. See you in about 5. Now that the break's over, let's get on with the meeting. The computer lexicon terms of the month this month deal with some really interesting terms and a lot longer than normal. Because in order to understand some of the concepts we're going to be talking about, we need to define what they are because they're not normal everyday terms. Our first term is what is synthetic reality. I'm not going to read all of this to you, but basically synthetic reality is sort of like virtual reality and augmented reality. It's where we are changing reality to match something that we're going to be doing. The real good example of this would be the holodeck from Star Trek. Now, we're not there yet, but we're rapidly approaching that. But when you take a look at gaming software and what they're creating, and you take a look at what the movies are creating right now, we are developing a new type of reality that replaces what we're doing. Now, one of the fears is that we're going to get so involved in it that we're going to escape reality. The only thing we have left is synthetic reality. We've seen this in a couple of movies so far. The next term is called deep fakes. Now, once again, I'm not going to read this all to you, but you can read this, at your leisure. But deep fakes refers to the current ability to create people saying things and doing things that they never did. The most famous one came in Mandalorian, the TV series, in which Luke Skywalker came back as a young man instead of the old man that he really is. This is becoming more common, and I did not even realize until I started researching this, how bad deep fakes get, to where you can't believe anything you see in a video anymore. The last term we're going to be talking about is one that I found really intriguing, and it's a new term that you don't see used a lot yet, but you'll see why it's important. It's called interactive video. Right now, prior to today's technological boom, video has been a very passive. You sit, you go to a theater, you watch it, and you leave. But now if you take a look at some of the new games that are coming out, these aren't really games. They're videos in which you are participating as a person in the video itself. Now, you see different aspects of this coming up where you have videos with hotspots in them, be able to interact with the video. But if you think about it, taking this to the next level, we're going to be seeing videos in which you are a character. Imagine you get to play the part in an upcoming movie as one of the main characters, or you can be one of the side characters. And this is a really exciting aspect of digital imagery that we're seeing in the foreseeable future, where you'll be able to interact with videos. The last term we're going to deal with today is called virtual production. Now, this is a very new term, you have to understand how movies are made today. We don't go on location to make most videos. What we do is we go out and either shoot on location without the actors, or we create it through the software that the gaming industry uses to create virtual realities. Now, what they do up until very recently is that they shoot the video with the actors against a green screen and then lay the background on top of that. So the actors never really get to see what they are looking at or interact with the movie like they would on location for the most part. Now, with virtual production, what they can do is they can, in real time, overlay what is going on with the actor so they can see it. So like if they're being, chased by dinosaur, they actually see the dinosaur. It's not a green screen production. And this is going to add a level of reality to movies coming out where the actors will no longer have to act. They can actually react to what's going on. So this is a really exciting aspect that's coming up. The most famous one that uses virtual production presentation is Mandalorian. Mandalorian is shot totally using Unreal Engine backdrops, and the actors are interacting at the same time. So it's not shot on location, it's not shot with green screen. They're actually seeing it in real time as they're acting. So if you've not seen Mandalorian yet, it's on Disney Plus, really worth watching. We're now going to segue into our main presentation, digital imagery, or as I like to call it, is it real? How we're going to approach this is I'm going to show you a number of different clips I've collected over the internet, going from what was to what will be. Now, we're going to start off with a movie clip from King Kong in 1933. At the time this was done, this was state-of-the-art special effects. So I want you to see where we started at and then where we're going to go. So let's take a look at the clip. As you can see, this is pretty fake. The backgrounds are obviously painted, the foliage was taken off of a production set, and the monster was obviously a model, but not very realistic. So let's take a look at where we're at right now. We're going to start off by looking at a program called Blender. Blender is an excellent program for creating objects, 3D photorealistic objects. Now, it also can be used for creating scenes, but its forte is in creating objects. So let's go through and see what it takes to create an object using Blender, and it's very similar to many other programs like Maya.
If you are new to Blender, this tutorial was designed for you. Together we're going to go step by step as you create your first 3D project. If you're like me, the first time you open up a 3D package, you might feel like you've just entered an alien spaceship. There are so many different buttons, so many different menus, so many different tabs, and this can be super overwhelming when you're first starting, which is why we at cgfasttrack.com are super passionate about really simplifying the process and building the courses that we wish we had when we first started. This is the Blender Fast Track series. In part 1, we're going to get up and running with the 3D viewport. We're going to take those skills and level up by building this Minecraft scene. In part 2, we will learn the basics of polygon modeling. We're going to model out the sword, we're going to apply textures and shaders, In part 3, we're going to go over cinematic rendering and environment building utilizing the included rock kit. And as a bonus, we're going to integrate the character and go over some basic keyframe camera animation. If you would like.
Now that we've created the objects, we have to think about how to create the scenery, the backgrounds, the forests, the cities, the medieval castles. And actually the best program that I have found for doing that by a long shot is one that's used for game development, which I mentioned earlier is becoming more and more like interactive video. This program is from Epic Software and it's called Unreal. And the current version, Unreal 5, is amazing in its ability to create entire worlds. It has advanced lighting, it has water, it has seasons. It's absolutely amazing. So let's take a look at how to create a world using Unreal 5.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion, where I cover anything in science, technology, business, or history. Take a close look at this scene. It looks just like any other movie scene, but it's actually a recreation of a scene in The Matrix. But it's made entirely within a game engine. Yeah, so what, you might be thinking. You might also be thinking, while tech demos look realistic, they're always pre-rendered and they use visual tricks just to make it seem more realistic. But what if I told you that this was running in real time and running on console hardware right now, today, on the PS5, Xbox Series X, and even Series S? Scenes like this highlight what's so exciting about Unreal Engine 5 by Epic Games. A few days ago, they showcased a Matrix game concept, and its purpose was to show that the future of gaming has indeed arrived. Just take a look at this. This is what I imagined the games of the future would look like as a kid. So I'm really excited about this. In this episode, we'll take a look at what was shown, as well as some other Unreal Engine 5 information, and then we'll see what this means for the future of gaming. Let's get into it.
You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
When we last visited Unreal Engine 5, I showed many aspects of what was nearly possible, but there are a number of people in the comment section who just couldn't believe it. They thought cinema quality gaming was still 20 years away. Later on in that very episode, I showed that Unreal Engine was indeed capable of cinema quality film productions. It was already being utilized by amateur filmmakers with incredible results, and we'll see another one of those at the end of the episode. But I guess the commenters in the last video just didn't watch the whole thing. Epic Games must have experienced something similar on social media, because this Matrix demo was made as a direct response to the people who just didn't believe that the last demo was real. They wanted to show that their technology was feasible. Let's just take a second to observe and appreciate just how far graphics have come with this engine. Observe the detail and the presence of the light and how it makes it feel like it's a real place and not just flat like most graphics. So as mentioned in the last episode, there are two main technologies here that make this a step above what was previously possible in the gaming industry. The first technology is Lumen, a real-time lighting solution that mimics the way light bounces in the real world, but it's achieved in such a way that it's less of a burden than traditional ray tracing. Previously, I mentioned lighting is a key aspect that sets video game graphics apart from pre-rendered Pixar movies. Now both of them can have that presence and realism, but the game is free to run in real time. To showcase the real-time lighting effects in the demo, there are settings where users can play with the sun's location and see for themselves how it affects the world. The second technology is Nanite. This allows for the polygon limit to largely be removed from games, and this is huge. Until now, game developers were limited by the number of polygons that they could have in one scene. The more you have, the more detailed it can be. But if you add too many, it begins to slow the system down. So it was a trade-off between artistic fidelity and gaming performance. But this is no longer the case. With the polygon limit removed, everything is extremely detailed all the time, and crazy things are possible. The city in this demo comprises of 7 million assets made up of millions of polygons each. There are 7,000 buildings, and there are over 45,000 parked cars, not to mention the cars that are driving around. There are 260 kilometers of road and 512 kilometers of sidewalk. For the first time, such a vast amount of detail can be rendered and played all at once in real time. Objects popping in and out of view as the player gets closer is largely a thing of the past. Buildings off in the distance can remain detailed. So how does Nanite work? Well, according to Epic Games, quote, during importing, meshes are analysed and broken down into hierarchical clusters of triangle groups. During rendering, clusters are swapped out on the fly at varying levels of detail based on the camera view and connect perfectly without cracks to neighbouring clusters within the same object. Data is streamed on demand so that only visible detail needs to reside in memory. Nanite runs in its own rendering pass that completely bypasses traditional draw call. And just to highlight how much detail there is, John Lineman from Digital Foundry says that it's the first playable game that is seen with a chain link fence that is modelled geometry and not just a texture. With the polygon limit removed, there's now creative room to do more things like this, where with previous technology, such things would have been a massive waste of resources. Another technology we touched on last time was MetaHuman, and that's Unreal Engine 5's character building solution. In the Matrix demo, it's proved itself in ways that I wouldn't have expected. So both Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss had their faces photo scanned in, but the third character in the back of the car is a stock MetaHuman character. Epic Games wanted to show that MetaHuman characters could be right beside digitally scanned assets and still hold up. There's also other technology built on top of Unreal Engine 5 that is frankly incredible. ZRT Face Trainer uses Unreal Engine 5 combined with AI trained on 4D movement data to create CGI puppets, and they give some amazing results. Just take a look at this face. When MetaHuman is combined with Blender, the results are also amazing. I do also want to talk about the Chaos engine in Unreal. It enables real-time destruction. In this car chase scene, when a car crashes and rolls, it's not something that's pre-rendered and controlled by the vision of the artists, it's the actual physics engine at work. The same goes for the glass breaking in the rear mirror. The publication Digital Foundry did some tests with the playthrough and found that when cars exploded or rolled, each time was different and unique. There's also an interesting scene in the demo where Neo is on the roof dodging a projectile. According to The Verge, Epic Games managed to find the original Warner Bros. Neo asset and import it into Unreal Engine 5. They literally combined a cinematic model with a real-time game engine. I think that's incredible, and I don't think it's something we've ever seen before. Interestingly, the city was procedurally generated based on algorithmic rules. This meant that the game designers and developers didn't have to painstakingly manually place every object, building, or road. It was done semi-automatically, freeing up more time for other things like fine-tuning of the world, and in the future, in the case of a real game, working on the actual story for once. Epic Games is giving this Matrix world away for free, all the assets and all the code, so users can modify it till their heart's content. So I think that's pretty cool, and we'll have to see what people come up with. Speaking of story and creativity, the amateur film community using Unreal Engine 5 is really starting to ramp up. I think this is definitely going to be a space to watch. Have a look and you'll know what I mean.
Rex, and we're going home.
Drone. I'm sending coordinates. Hurry.
Copy on the fallen drone. Receiving coordinates now.
Now that we've created our objects and created our background scenes, we need to put those together in a production environment. And this is where it becomes very interesting. In the King Kong segment that we watched, they did that with a studio mock-up where they put together the foliage, or they used clay models on a tabletop and trick photography. And we segued into here recently, we've been using green screening, where we photograph the actors against a green screen and then use a computer capability to remove that green screen and put composite something behind it, such as a forest, a city, whatever we want to do. But the problem with green screening is the actors have no idea what they're looking at. They actually have to act as if they're seeing something. With virtual production and using the same software we're talking about using, the actors can actually see in real time what it is they're supposed to be reacting to. Directors can make changes. They say, well, geez, that's not exactly what I had in mind. We need to change it, and it's all done in real time. So let's take a look at a quick segment on virtual production.
There is no doubt that The Mandalorian was a fantastic TV series, but what most people don't know is that the vast majority of their environments weren't green screened. They actually used Unreal Engine to dynamically create and update their backgrounds on set. This is the art of virtual production, a new emerging form of production which allows directors to mix live footage and computer graphics at once, get real-time feedback, and make decisions on set about the VFX and animation of a scene. For example, a director can change the lighting, colors, materials, and positions of anything in the scene in an instant. Now, on a regular set, making changes like this could cost thousands of dollars, waste days of production, or just be straight up impossible to do. The amazing thing about virtual production is that virtual content now can be created by decentralized teams around the globe without any delays. The possibilities widen without increasing the cost. This is great news for us real-time artists. The flexibility and interactivity of virtual worlds within the game engine, combined with the ability to visualize content earlier on in the production process, uncover new possibilities for studios to realize and refine their vision. Like the world of game design, virtual production studios need environment artists, character artists, VFX specialists, sound designers, and almost anything else you can think of. And they need all of these artists to understand real-time technology. Films out today, like The Lion King, Ripple Effect, and Mandalorian, were made using game development technology just like Unreal Engine, and provide a ton of really cool opportunities for 3D artists in a ton of different fields to break into the world of cinema. With its low overhead, speed, and ease of use, I can definitely see virtual production getting a lot of traction in other genres like indie filmmaking, commercial shoots, and model photography. These are all niches where real-time artists can find cracks to sneak into.
So now we've seen how we can put together objects, scenery, do virtual productions where the human actors had the capability of reacting to something that doesn't really exist. But there's one more piece of the puzzle. What if we need actors that don't exist? Or we want to create actors for a very specialized role? And there is that capability now. And that capability is available in a number of different pieces of software. The one that I think is the most advanced that I've seen is called MetaHuman by, once again, Epic, and allows you from a base of a number of different models to go in and manipulate those characters into pretty much what you're looking for and then be able to dress them. And then you can add voice to them, you can add movement to them, and you can actually create what looks like real humans that don't exist. And you can also take and overlay real humans' digital image on top of these characters and create something a human is doing things that they didn't really do. And we'll get to that right after this little segment.
The next generation of digital human powered by Unreal Engine. MetaHumans are high-fidelity digital characters created by you, the user, on our new content creation platform, MetaHuman Creator. I am fully rigged, ready for animation and motion capture, allowing you to work in context. With everything running live in Unreal Engine, my motion works seamlessly.
On other characters, I have 8 levels of detail and have been tested on a wide range of hardware platforms, from feature film to mobile. If you're interested in learning about my animation rig or high-fidelity deformations, built on Control Rig, the new strand-based hair system via the Groom component, or how everything is tied together and animated in Sequencer, then have a look under the hood in this project. This is just a glimpse of things to come.
Now that we've seen the capability of creating people, and we can actually create images of people that actually exist, we now are faced with a moral and ethical issue. We can now make people look and do things and say things they didn't really do. Most of you remember that during the past 8 years or so, former President Obama and Trump were shown in videos saying things and doing things they did not do. And what about videos of Nancy Pelosi, who was doing things and saying things she actually didn't do? Well, that has become so bad, there's actually a name for it, and it's called, and the deepfake issue is what we're going to look at right now. This is a Bloomberg report on deepfake and how bad it's actually getting.
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time.
Jordan Peele created this fake video of President Obama to demonstrate how easy it is to put words in someone else's mouth.
Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet.
Not everyone bought it, but the technology behind such frauds is rapidly improving, even as worries increase about their potential for harm. This is your Bloomberg Quick Take on deepfakes. Deepfakes, or realistic-looking fake videos and audio, gained popularity as a means of adding famous actresses into porn scenes. Despite bans on major websites, they remain easy to make and find. They're named for the deep learning artificial intelligence algorithms that make them possible. Input real audio or video of a specific person, the more the better, and the software tries to recognize patterns in speech and movement. Introduce a new element like someone else's face or voice, and a deepfake is born.
It's actually extremely easy to make one of these things. There were just some supposed, breakthroughs from academic researchers who work with this particular kind of machine learning in the past few weeks, which would drastically reduce the amount of video you need actually to create one of these.
Programs like FakeApp, the most popular and widely available for making deepfakes, need dozens of hours of human assistance to create a video that looks like this, rather than this. In August, researchers at Carnegie Mellon revealed software that accurately rendered not just facial features, but changing weather patterns and flowers in bloom. This advance is not yet available to the public. But with increasing capability comes increasing concern.
This is kind of fake news on steroids, potentially. We do not know of a case yet where someone has tried to use this to perpetrate a kind of fraud or an information warfare campaign, or for that matter, to really damage someone's reputation. But it's the danger that everyone is really afraid of.
In a world where fakes are easy to create, authenticity also becomes easier to deny. People caught doing genuinely objectionable things could claim evidence against them is bogus. Fake videos can also be difficult to detect, though researchers around the world and at the US Department of Defense have said they're working on ways to counter them. Deep fakes do, however, have some positive uses. Take Cereproc, a firm that creates digital voices for people who lose theirs from disease.
Speech synthesis is the artificial production of human speech.
There are also applications that could be considered either good or bad, like the many, many deepfakes that exist solely to turn as many movies as possible into Nicolas Cage movies.
Oh, hi, Mark.
To show you how realistic this can become, I want to show you a clip that I found that I think you'll find very interesting. And this is a very good example of how realistic we've been able to do this and the problems that it can generate. So let's find out who this really is.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. At least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
Now that we've seen all the pieces, we need to see how it all fits together. The next segment I'm going to show you is where the state of the art in production has come to. The next clip is a state-of-the-art production from the BBC that was found on Apple Plus. It is called Prehistoric Planet, and it is a very realistic presentation on what the world was like with dinosaurs. Everything you see in this clip has been done through computer imagery. None of it is real, and I think you'll see that it is highly realistic. So enjoy.
The bones of dinosaurs are often very well preserved indeed, but that's not the case with the skin or the soft parts. So imagining what they looked like has been largely a matter of guesswork. But now some truly exceptional fossils have been discovered that have changed all that. One of the most startling discoveries has been the presence of feathers on a large number of species, including Velociraptor.
The idea that dinosaurs like Velociraptor were fully feathered is no longer at all controversial. We currently know of about 60 dinosaur species that are completely covered in feathers, just like modern birds.
Some of the most perfect fossilized feathers have been discovered in China. This is an image of a specimen that was found in 2015. It's called Zhenhua, and you can probably guess from these huge claws on its feet that it was related to a velociraptor. But also you can see amazingly perfect detail of feathers down its tail and more on its arms, its wings. For Velociraptor in particular, fossils have even been found with indentations in the bone, showing exactly where feathers would have been positioned.
So it would have looked very different from that scaly monster that we're familiar with. It would have been coated in lots and lots of feathers and would have looked a lot more like a kind of really terrifying turkey.
The fossil evidence for feathers may be clear and incontrovertible, but why would a flightless predator like Velociraptor need feathers in the first place? A downy coat may soften their image as scaly reptilian killers, but in fact feathers would have made velociraptors even more deadly, allowing them to attack unsuspecting prey where no other hunter would be able to venture.
When we look at modern animals, we see that feathers are useful for so much more than just flying. For an animal like Velociraptor, feathers would have helped to control movement, particularly when the animal was leaping, climbing, or changing direction during a hunt.
Feathers can also function as a kind of suit of armour, providing protection from the blows of prey, as well as from collisions with the environment. And that would have allowed them to succeed even in the most difficult terrains.
I think you can see that that is a pretty spectacular presentation. That I hope you notice the water, which was very realistic, the feathers on the dinosaurs, the movement, all that through computer imagery. And so the future, well, that's the state of the art. The future is probably just going to get better. That is our presentation for this month, and I'm going to open up for any questions or discussion. Is there any questions or any discussion? Okay, since discussion has already taken place, that ends this month's meeting, and looking forward to seeing you next month. Everyone take care and have a great weekend.